And I had this realization that I really wasn't living. I was not, my weight may have been going down, and it was, but I was not living life. I was all by myself, isolated, completely focused on food. And through just by serendipity, I think that's really my story in a nutshell. Well, this part isn't serendipity. This is very biological. I got pregnant. And when I got pregnant, that way of eating and exercising was not conducive to maintaining pregnancy. That's when I really noticed how awful I was feeling and how badly I was treating my body unknowingly. Like I was following the rules, I thought. And someone introduced me to Weston Price and how it's not really about number of calories. It's about whole food, not processed food. And I started introducing whole local food, fats, protein, local veggies, community-sponsored agriculture, all of these things into my life. And I stopped measuring and I started feeling amazing. Even being pregnant, I had more energy and more vitality.
Hello and welcome to the Weight Free Wellness Podcast. I'm Tara Bachland, and today's episode that you just heard from is Lori Rose, and we'll get to her in just a moment. But I'm wondering, have you heard of Patreon? Patreon is a really neat, it's kind of a crowdfunding website where you can support the people making the creative projects that you really love and enjoy. And a number of those are podcasts. So Weight Free Wellness is now on Patreon, and you can be a patron of the Weight Free Wellness Podcast. And it's not just a donation thing. There's really a great exchange where patrons get exclusive content. So starting at just $1, there are all kinds of goodies and rewards. So we'll do private, invitation only, patron only, live events, including podcasts. You'll get to see behind the scenes stuff. I'm going to be doing a bloopers reel because yes, there's funny stuff that happens behind the scenes, and all kinds of other goodies, free copies of my book. We'll do Q&A sessions with me and with guests. So all kinds of really good goodies that are only going to be available to those who are patrons. So you can learn about that at weightfreewellness.com, and there is an orange, it's the only orange button, the only orange thing I think is on the website, and it says become a patron, and any kind of support is very much appreciated. So today's guest is Lori Rose, and she's created, developed, and instructs the Hill College Holistic Wellness Pathway. It's the most thorough, affordable, degreed wellness program in the country. And we talk about that today. And I actually learned a number of things of what's the difference between a wellness coach, a nutritionist, and so forth. It's really helpful information. If you've ever thought about becoming a wellness practitioner, it'll answer a lot of your questions. And I'm really, really happy that Lori is a new addition to the Weight Free Wellness platform team as a contributing podcaster. So you'll be hearing more from her. And she'll be sharing her expertise and in a number of areas. But first of all, we're going to be learning about common ways that you can, or natural ways that you can remedy common ailments. So sinus and congestion, cough and cold, fever, insomnia, PMS, cramps, headache, digestion, stress, muscle spasms, and much more. We're also going to be doing a natural first aid, learning how to treat bites and stings, sunburn, and making sunscreen, and so much more. What's really great is she's a mom. She has experience with kids, and so this will cover all the ages of people and how to address these issues. And most of all, what's really cool is she's going to show us how to make our own remedies and how to use them, because it's different for each age category if someone's on medication and so forth. So we're going to get to learn lots of that cool stuff. I'm personally very excited to learn this from her. So right now, if you want to be updated about that, the best way is make sure you're on the Weight Free Wellness newsletter, and you will get a heads up of the live events. They will be recorded, but if you want to be there live and interact, that's a really fun way to get involved. And just go to weightfreewellness.com and sign up for the newsletter there, and we'll give you all the heads up information. So This interview was so much fun. This was my first time actually getting to know Lori, and we hit it off right away. She's such a fun and lively person, and I'm so excited to introduce her to you. Here you go. Enjoy. Well, Lori Rose, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and joining you on your podcast.
Thank you. You know, when you sent me your bio and your photo, when I saw your photo, I'm like, this lady is going to be fun to talk to. I could just tell.
Yeah, I'm, when I go to new groups or new meetings and people say, what are you passionate about? We all go around in a circle. My answer is always funny because it's like, I'm passionate about everything. I think my gift is passion. That's just what it is. So whatever I'm interested in, I'm really interested in it. So yeah, I'm glad that came across.
Totally. And it was very interesting to me too, because as I was reading through your Facebook page and your website, I just assumed for some reason that you just like came onto this earth like that. But in part of your story, you did share that there's at least this period of life where you were not this energetic or passionate or even bubbly and cheery. And so, okay, I was going to start with your education background, but maybe let's start with a little bit of your own health journey.
We can. Yeah, and I don't want to get like too negative right at the beginning, but trauma is a part of my history and my story. And so there was a lot of personal healing that had to be done, as an adult, for me to really decide to cultivate positivity. And I think that's one of the most shocking things that I tell my students is, I think they perceive me as very positive and full of gratitude. And when I tell them that's something that I taught myself, like I was not born, I don't think, or maybe I was, that it was, traumatized out of me. But this embracing of passion and positivity, that's a decision I made. And it's something that I read about and I learned about, and it's something I definitely decided to be. And I'm glad you brought that up in a sort of health and wellness perspective, because in the beginning, I've always been really interested in healthy food and being healthy, but it was more from a nutrition angle and a weight angle and a counting calories angle. It never had anything to do with mental wellness. I always had that sort of negative background tucked into me, and I was very guarded. So I was really focused on food and exercise and getting healthy in that way. And boy, that was a journey too. And we can come around back to that. But once I really started focusing on my mental health and cultivating a positive outlook on life, that's really when I think vitality came into my being.
So there's a number of aspects to your journey from what I read, but it sounds like even when you had reached a real healthy state of being as far as, I say the word weight because I know initially that was your goal, but when you found true health as far as food and exercise and balance, am I correct in my understanding that you're saying that was a step, but the real vitality came when you improved and healed that trauma and healed your mind?
Oh yeah, and it was a long journey. So I started off focusing really on, I've always been connected to the earth. So when I heard that certain diets were hard on the planet, I embraced vegetarian and veganism for a while, and I really felt awful on those diets. And then once I got married, I gained what I call the happy weight. So I got really overweight, and I decided to really hit it hard. And so I followed all these standard American weight loss strategies of counting calories and exercising to lose weight, and always like literally weighing myself dozens of times.
And you said you would even carry measuring cups in your purse.
In my purse. I wouldn't go anywhere with anybody because I knew there would be tempting food there. And I was running hours a day, measuring everything. My husband tried to take food off my plate. I'd be like, that's my only food. And I had this realization that I really wasn't living. I was not, my weight may have been going down, and it was, but I was not living life. I was all by myself, isolated, completely focused on food. And through just by serendipity, I think that's really my story in a nutshell. Well, this part isn't serendipity. This is very biological. I got pregnant. And when I got pregnant, that way of eating and exercising was not conducive to maintaining pregnancy. That's when I really noticed how awful I was feeling and how badly I was treating my body unknowingly. Like I was following the rules, I thought. And someone introduced me to Weston Price and how it's not really about number of calories. It's about whole food, not processed food. I started introducing whole local food, fats, protein, local veggies, community-sponsored agriculture, all of these things into my life. And I stopped measuring and I started feeling amazing. Even being pregnant, I had more energy and more vitality. But there was definitely still that background of just negativity, and not on purpose, but I was very guarded by perceived necessity from my past. And so I did go on to be a nutrition instructor. And so I taught a whole food type of nutrition instead of the standard American weight calorie counting type of nutrition. And somewhere along that journey, I decided that again, yeah, I was healthy. I felt great. There was no health issues. I was eating well. I was connected to my community. I was growing my veggies and growing my plants, you know. But there was still this lack of joy that I didn't really know I was missing until I was introduced to a different kind of mental wellness. And I really embraced gratitude and forgiveness and deciding to perceive the world as a safe, positive place instead of a scary, awful, negative place. And then you start noticing like, oh, people are awesome and people are doing nice things for each other. And there's a lot of amazing things going on. There's a lot of bad things going on too, but there's so much amazing stuff and people around us. And that's when the joy came.
Mm-hmm. That makes such a difference, you know, especially I'm sure you found yourself recently. I don't know, how much are you on Facebook?
Oh man. Well, I use Facebook a little differently. Like it's how I educate myself. Like, oh, here's this herb class and here's this Zumba class and here's this yoga class. So I don't really, I very much distance myself from the negativity, but I've absolutely felt it at the turn of the year. Yeah, that's what I've brought up with several guests, especially in the mental emotional health realm, you know, how to handle these things. And I think you point out a very good point that, you know, when you choose to see the world in a certain way, and I don't think it's just like living in your own bubble, you know, you will experience life the way you choose to see it and experience it. And you mentioned a few authors in your story, but did you just go about that by reading, or did you take some courses, or how did that come about? Yeah, I call myself just a lifelong student. I just really love learning everything. So if there's something to read or a course to take, that's not a barrier for me. That makes me like jump in and love it. So that's a lucky benefit that I had when I had all of this healing to do. But yeah, someone introduced me to Marianne Williamson by giving me her books. And then I was introduced to Brene Brown, like just again, through serendipity via Facebook. And I saw her TED Talk video, and then I got her books, and then she has online courses and I took those. And so, there's so many more, like, Conversations with God and, Eckhart Tolle. I really don't know how, and they all came at once. And I don't know how it happened, but they were all there, and I read them and I embraced them, and I made it a point to activate those strategies in my life.
I just had to write a note because I don't want to bring up the question now and sidetrack us. I will leave it for later. So let's So a summary, you kind of went through the standard American diet weight loss that proved, or you proved to yourself eventually that, what I love about your story is that you bought this book by this one naturopath, and he's had a money back guarantee. And I love that you kind of had a way of, instead of just doubting it and saying, no, this is not going to work, I'm not going to get it, you're like, I'm going to get it and I'm going to prove him wrong. And you actually ended up benefiting from it.
Yes, I'm such a rebel. And I actually think it was my mom who introduced me to his website. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do this because I know counting calories and weighing myself all day and running 6 miles a day is wonderful. And so his diet was the opposite. Stop counting calories, eat whole food, introduce protein and fat. The other diet was totally low fat, high grain. This one is like, avoid gluten and eat a bunch of fat. So I'm like, I'm proving this guy wrong and I'm getting my $30 back. And so I emailed them multiple times like, okay, does this count as this or this? I want to follow this program perfectly. So there's no excuse they can give me of why it didn't work for me. And so I did it, and like in a matter of weeks, I was feeling so much more amazing, so much better than I knew I could feel. And then again, like I mentioned, like before, I just wasn't living. And in this, I was like, I can eat that way no matter where I am. I didn't have to measure things. I got more in tune to my body, which I didn't realize I was completely ignoring. Every diet choice before that I had made because someone told me something in a book of why I should do this or why this was the right choice. And that's not what this sort of whole food living was about. It was about listening to your body, tweaking it to what worked for you, and really ignoring all the dogmatic rules and recognizing that we're bio-individual.
Yeah,
and it works. So I didn't get my money back.
Sounds like you got a lot more from it.
Yes.
Getting your money back for
Absolutely.
sure. So from what I understand, it's along this journey that you were obtaining certain education as well that led to your now being would you say professor of nutrition and a number of other programs. So can you tell us some of that education background and what it's led you to?
Sure. So kind of this whole story that I've been telling you about was me being in my bachelor's program and in a PhD program. So I have a PhD in biology. That was just always my interest. And then when I became an instructor at a local community college, I was teaching biology, and I still do. And nutrition was part of that. So I'm like, oh, give me that. Like, I have got to teach that class. I've got to tell people about this different way of eating. It's so different than any nutrition book you're going to see that's available. And through my passion for nutrition, I started gardening. This is so funny. So through gardening, I learned that, you can use companion plants to scare away the bugs, so you can plant without using pesticides. So I have all these herbs in my garden as pest control that I don't have any idea how to use. And so I start looking online, like, how can I use this herb? How can I use this herb? And I notice, so you can use these herbs medicinally. And part of my education journey was I used to think I wanted to be a doctor. Then I realized like that just wasn't meant for me. Allopathic medicine wasn't the path I was supposed to go on. So I got into environmental biology. And I realized, you can use these herbs with health issues. So then I started going down this journey of taking this herb class and this herb class. And I figured out, oh my gosh, I can do this and I can teach this. So now not only have I pursued a certification in holistic nutrition, in addition to my PhD in biology, but I'm also now a clinical herbalist and a wellness coach. And the wellness coach is a little bit different. It's more about the mental health, lifestyle aspect. And if you notice, my journey kind of led me to all of those things. Like nutrition was important, and lifestyle and mental health was important, and herbs are important too, just to maintain that vitality and that health day to day. And so those are all the schools I've gone into just because that's where my passion led me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like the scholastic route. Of course, life has its own schooling, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I had no idea this is what I was going to be doing.
It's amazing. It's amazing how we're led. My previous guest earlier today, we're just talking about that topic too. So you right now are the classes going on? I know you're teaching right now other classes, but you have a curriculum coming up that is for certification, or a person can apply for certification in holistic nutrition, general or clinical herbalism, and wellness coach.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is so exciting. So there's no other school that I know of that offers these 3 different tiers that I really think are part of the whole puzzle. Like, you've got to have all the pieces. So holistic nutrition is a little bit different than wellness coaching, and that's a little bit different from herbalism. And the national boards for those different topics have their own scope of practice and their own credentialing requirements. And since I, just through passion, have obtained all 3, well, now I'm qualified to teach others to pursue those qualifications as well. So starting April 15th, and then, forever after that, hopefully, right, based on demand, students can come to the school where I teach, and while also pursuing an associate degree of science, which again is very unique. Most of these schools are like just separate, non-credentialed schools. While pursuing an associate degree that they can then go on later to get separate bachelors, they can get the education required to apply to sit for the Holistic Nutrition Board, to the Wellness Coach Board, and then also to get a registered herbalist designation through the American Herbalist Guild.
So do they have to be in an associate's program?
No. So this is the other cool thing. Like, if someone's just starting and they're like, I want to do holistic wellness, they can do the full associate holistic wellness program. And they're going to do the core classes like the English and the math and the history and the holistic stuff. Mm-hmm. Or if someone already has a degree in anything and they want to just come take those wellness courses, they can do that and apply to those national boards. Or if someone is in a different degree program, like nursing or psychology or business or history or whatever, then they can come and just add those wellness courses onto their degree. So there's a lot of customization available for really anyone who wants to just get the education to sit for those boards.
Do they have to then, if they don't have any degree, do they have to at least obtain the associates along with the nutrition and holistic coaching?
Only for the wellness coaching national certification. So when you come take my classes, you'll get the required training to be a wellness coach. And there's no license or law saying you can or can't be a wellness coach. So you can be being a wellness coach, but to sit for their board certification, to put the little letters after your name, they require an associate. But they're the only ones. The Holistic Nutritionist Board, they don't require an associate, and neither do the American Herbalist Guild.
So let's say someone is thinking about going to a nutritionist, a holistic coach, or even a naturopath for that regard. Can we cover a couple of those? Because I'm sure you can shed a lot of light on what the difference would be. Maybe starting with a holistic nutritionist. Now, what do they do, and how does that differ from maybe a few others?
Right. And that is a great question, because when I started pursuing this as a career option, I had no idea there even was a difference. And there's a huge difference. So the Holistic Nutritionist Board, that's more about consulting. And it's sort of more allopathic in the client practitioner interaction. Mm-hmm. So if I have my nutrition consultant hat on, someone would come sit with me and I'd say, okay, what's your issue? What are you hoping to do? What are you hoping to achieve? And then I would then tell them a bunch of stuff. Like, okay, here's this, here's that, do this, do that. And I'd type up a protocol and they would leave. It's more of a practitioner giving their knowledge to someone else. Versus wellness coaching, totally different. Kind of the opposite.
With a nutritionist then backing up, would it be take these supplements or change your diet this way? What might be a few directions that they give?
Yeah, so you'll get nutrition instructions and you'll get supplement advice. You'll get a little bit of herbal protocol, but it's more of like using herbs in capsules like a supplement versus when we talk about herbalism, we'll see how that's a little bit different. So it's really kind of supplement nutrition focused. Maybe depending on your teacher, there'll be some mental health, lifestyle stuff going on there. But it's really just focused on food and supplements.
And why might someone end up in the nutritionist's office?
Oh man, if you feel tired, lethargic, depressed, anxious, cranky, unable to focus, if you have weight issues or blood sugar issues or blood pressure issues, these are all things that changing your diet can really help support. And just to be clear on scope of practice, none of these credentials allow any kind of diagnosing, treating, curing. That's in the scope of practice of a doctor, and we are not doctors. We're more there to be like, okay, so your doctor said you're at risk for diabetes. I can't diagnose diabetes, but here's what I can do. These are foods that help support healthy blood sugar regulation. And here are foods that help support detox. And here are foods that help support healthy blood sugar or healthy blood pressure and heart health, those sort of things.
So would they be working in a clinical location, like along with a doctor, or get referrals that way? Or do they work independently usually?
It's possible. It really just depends on the allopathic doctor and how they sort of view the importance of food. But there's definitely a way to sort of form that kind of partnership. That would really be ideal. That way the client could go get lab tests, get diagnosed by a doctor, see if there's anything really like immediately life-threatening. Because that's another thing we don't do. We don't emergency room save anyone, right? And then if the doctor's like, okay, you can take this drug, but this drug will work a lot better if you're also changing your diet this way, adding these supplements this way. And that's definitely a partnership that can be there.
Yeah, wouldn't that be wonderful if all clinics were set up that way? Yeah. So what's next? What do you think we should compare that to?
Yeah, so then wellness coaching, which I really thought was exactly the same thing. I didn't know there was a difference. And then I went to wellness coaching school and I was like, oh, this is so different. So the scope of practice for wellness coaching really isn't about knowing biochemistry and epigenetics and nutrigenomics and all of that stuff about food.
Which are really cool subjects.
Yeah, those are fabulous. You're going to learn all that on the nutrition side. But the idea behind wellness coaching is that the client really knows what they're supposed to be doing. And what the coach is there to do is ask open-ended questions to really help the client dig in and explore and find any barriers that they're having, preventing them from achieving those goals, and listening to what they already know. So it's about helping the client connect themselves to their own intuition. Now, if there is something going on like, oh, this client thinks counting calories and exercising 2 hours a day is a good idea, then you can, give them a little bit of nutrition advice. But for the most part, there's no supplements being talked about. It's not really creating this food protocol. It's more about goal setting and helping the client identify their own strengths and their own barriers and ways to predict those barriers and how to overcome them. And it deals a lot more with relationships and lifestyle and maybe negative attitude and maybe past traumas. And in saying that, I do want to say that wellness coaches are not counselors. So if there is like a traumatic event in a client's past, they would definitely be referred out to like, okay, we recommend you work with a trained counselor on this. And if we think there's blood pressure issues, we'd be like, go get diagnosed by a doctor for this. But as far as the goal setting and helping the client really connect to their intuition is more what wellness coaching is about. So that one's kind of about shutting up and letting the client talk and listen and work through their stuff.
That's really interesting because I didn't know that they were so different as far as nutritionist versus wellness coach. And I'm curious too, so are people usually referred to wellness coaches, or they just kind of come around to the point like, I really need some coaching?
I don't even think the general public knows that there's a difference between those things. So I think if someone goes to a nutrition consultant or wellness coach, they're really just looking for a more holistic way to address their health issues than just taking medicine. So I really don't even think there's that awareness there. And so they would just like type in, how can I get a health coach, or how can I find a holistic practitioner? And they would just fall into someone's lap. Versus if you go to someone who's specifically a wellness coach, they'll have a very different background than someone who's a nutrition consultant. And the great thing about my program is I train them to do both. Yeah. Because like I said, they were both crucial to my health journey. So that nutrition knowledge is really important, but knowing how to get someone there through the right questions and helping them tune into their intuition instead of doing what you tell them to do, like it's way more successful when they do it for themselves. Right.
Yeah. And then going from, that's as you're talking, I'm like, oh, this is really nicely packaged. Then, instead of a person having to bop around to different people and get different services, you can have, one concise package. And I would imagine that a number of people, this is a nice way to even start your own business.
Absolutely. Because usually, so the way it's out there now is there are holistic nutrition schools, there's wellness coaching schools, and there's herbalist schools. They're all fabulous. They were my teachers, right? Mm-hmm. But they are isolated in those respects, in that you only get that specific skill. And because they're not through accredited schools, you can't use financial aid. So everyone's paying out of pocket for this. Who can afford to go to all three of those different schools? I got lucky in that my school paid for one of them. I got a scholarship to another one. Like, it just happened to work out that way. But I was raised low income, and I know there's no way I could have done that if that was my original, if I knew that was my goal back then, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because you're not available for financial aid. So the great thing about this program is that it is through an accredited school. You can use financial aid. We happen to be in a very low income location, so our tuition is so low. It's ridiculously low. And so you can get the training for all of these credentials for like a sixth of the price that you can get just one of those other credentials at the other schools, which again, I'm not knocking those schools. They're amazing. And there's going to be enough demand for all of them, right? But for the people who really want to pursue this that are low income, you want all three of those things instead of just one. You can't get this unless you need financial aid or veterans benefits. We're here, and we can provide that service now in this field.
Well, you're doing it really smart too, putting it online. Obviously, that opens up your demographic of who can attend.
Right.
Yeah, it's smart. Very smart.
Yeah. And initially, I thought, so all these schools are online, which is great for the online learner. But for someone who wants to do it in person, that's also sort of not available. Mm-hmm. And so I'm giving these classes in person. But that was kind of like, oh, well, only the people who live in the DFW region of Texas can come to this in-person program. But I record them. And because I've done all of these classes online, I know the ways to work these things in an online setting. And so it's available for both people who are in-person learners and for people who need it online. So really, it's available to anyone everywhere.
Yeah, that's so cool. Very, very cool. So the herbal component of this, and also adding, what's the difference between the general and the clinical herbalist?
So I love this part of it too. So when you get into herbalism, so when I was talking about nutrition coaching, they really do focus on using herbs instead of allopathic pharmaceuticals, but they do it in a way to where it's like, take this herb for this herb for this herb for this, which works for a while. Sometimes. But once you get into herbalism, you learn that that's not really how plants work. Plants have their own unique qualities, their own energetics, and so do people. And so it's not just someone who has this diagnosis can take this herb. It's like you have to figure out what are all the components of this person and what are all the components of these herbs and which one is the best one for that client. And you really can't get that deep into it without pursuing herbalism itself.
Mm-hmm.
So general herbalism is like someone who wants to learn how to use herbs with their family. They want to make their own herbal remedies at home, maybe in their community, provide some local herbal education. Versus clinical herbalism is where you take that knowledge to the next step and you start seeing clients. Mm-hmm. You see clients one-on-one for different specific health issues, and you use herbs to help them on their health journey. And so really it's all the same concepts. It's just how you're using it, how you're using those herbs. And if you look at most herbal programs, they're one or the other. Like there's really great family herbalism programs where you learn how to cook with herbs and use them in your daily life. There's really great herbal programs about how to plant these herbs, how to see them in the wild, how to wildcraft them and identify them. And those are great programs. Then there's other herbal programs that are all clinical, like, hey, let's get you in a seat in front of a client, create some protocols. Mm-hmm. But I don't know of any of them that do all of those things. Mm-hmm. Mine does. So I teach the whole spectrum of general and clinical herbalism, including the client component. So part of my school, because it's required for all three of those credentials, is getting in front of clients. So we have two different clinical courses where they're just going to be seeing clients one after another. So not only do they learn how to plant and grow herbs, not only do they learn how to cook and make their own herbal remedies and use them at home, they also get their clinical hour experience, which usually you have to pay for separately, but it's embedded into this program.
Oh, cool. So how do you even cover something like the contraindications of herbs with medicines? Absolutely.
So even in the nutrition courses, I focus really hard on those contraindications because I think that's a big misconception the public has, is that, oh, if it grows in the ground, then it's totally fine. And there's not going to be herb-drug interactions and there's not going to be herb-people interactions. And there absolutely are. Mm-hmm. So it's important to be knowledgeable about herbs and be safe with your herbs, especially if a client is working with an allopathic doctor and they're on a medication. Because lots of wonky things can happen. And so that's a crucial component of the courses.
Yeah, that's so important. And that's good. I would assume that would be covered, but I had to ask. So how much time does it take to go through this program?
So if you do it in sort of the fashion that I imagine, which everyone's going to come in and do it all different, right? That's just the way it happens. But it's designed to cover 4 semesters. So the first 2 semesters are the herbalism sort of wellness lifestyle background. And then if you dive deeper, you add on the herbalism and some of the advanced clinicals that second year. So it's 2 falls and 2 springs. And if you were pursuing an associate at the same time, then it aligns with an associate program.
So would it be, if you're not doing the associates, would it be equivalent to a half?
I think it would still take those 4 semesters because they kind of build on each other. So you couldn't take them all at once. But it's a total of 6 classes. So nutrition 1 and 2, clinicals 1 and 2, and then herbalism 1 and 2.
Okay.
And then, like I mentioned, if you want that wellness coaching certificate, you have to get an associate's. But you'll have the skills to be a wellness coach, whether you pursue that certification or not.
Right. They just want you to have the other components to back it up.
Yeah.
So I guess what I was getting at is, so if you add on the associates, I would assume that would be a full-time school.
A full load? Oh, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I don't come from the...
That's okay. Now I get what you're asking. Yeah, so if you're doing just those courses, it would be, you could be either half-time or even 3/4 time, which will be important for people using financial aid. So, yeah.
Yeah. Or just busy lives.
Right.
Otherwise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very cool. So another question that came to mind is, it sounds like a lot of these things are components that maybe a naturopath would have as a part of their education. And just to be clear, what is the difference between a naturopath and someone who's gone through this course?
So naturopathy is in that kind of weird limbo state where some states you can get an ND and practice and like prescribe medication, take clients off medication. You're just taught a more natural way of doing those as opposed to an MD. So it's much longer, 4 to 6 years. But there are some states where you can do that full ND program and not be able to practice. And so you definitely want to know what state you're in if you want to pursue an ND degree. But also, there are a lot of ND programs because it's kind of weird about that licensing and about those credentials and what they allow you to do. Some naturopath schools are really rigorous and amazing. And some naturopath schools are like, get your ND in 6 months. And there's no training. And they still get to say, I'm a naturopath. Mm-hmm. And so that's a really fishy place right now. So you want to make sure if you're pursuing that degree that you go to one that, one, aligns with your state, and 2, meets those rigorous credentials to train you to do what you really want to do.
Yeah, that's important to know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So people pursuing the courses that you're offering, what do you see that they can do with this?
Oh man, I love this question. So many things. So one, of course, you could teach, right? But if you just stop at those 6 courses, you can have your own clinic. So you can see clients and you can help them in any of those different angles. So you can provide wellness coaching and holistic nutrition and herbalism protocols for them to help them on their health journey. You can also do a blog. You can write for other bloggers because you'll have these credentials after your name, and those bloggers always need guest bloggers to come in and advise them or help them write articles, and they pay you for that. Like, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that before I did this, and now that's some stuff I dabble in on the side. Or you can go on. So here's my dream. I haven't said this out loud yet, so I'm excited to say it right now. So my dream is that my students will get these credentials, and then they'll go on and become DOs and MDs and NDs and psychologists and psychiatrists and nurses and massage therapists and anything in the health field. And then we will all have this holistic background to do all of those health areas, and we'll just add holistic healing to the world. Like that's what I hope happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like a holistic pre-med.
Yes. And so they go and they get their MD and they can do all this stuff and the licensing and things like that from a holistic perspective. And I really think that's the future of health. It's the past of health, but I think it's the future of health too. And so that's my vision. Some people are going to stop right there, and that's great. Some people are going to keep going, get a bachelor's in nutrition or a bachelor's in this or that, and that's great. Some people can keep going. So really it's anything at all in the health field. Or even agriculture, right? They're going to learn how to grow herbs so they can start a local herb farm, or they can have an herbal remedy business where they create their own herbal products. That all of that stuff is going to be included in my program, and they'll learn how to do all of that stuff. So herbal businesses, what else? I mean, I could just go on and on.
Well, it does sound like a terrific foundation.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
That's awesome. I know it piques my interest. It's definitely something that, all the topics have been very, very much passions for me. I guess is there an exercise component?
So that is going to be part of the nutrition. So what is the title of that? Because they all have, state-made titles, but nutrition and diet therapy or something. But yeah, exercise and physical fitness, that'll definitely be part of those initial entry-level courses. So just like with food, we in this country have kind of a skewed view of how to use movement to our benefit in a healthy way, as opposed to this like self-punishing, must get calories off my body way, which is really not what our bodies are meant to do. And so a healthy kind of view of body movement is definitely an important part of the course.
That's great. And it sounds like it's so much more, and even beyond calories in, calories out kind of view.
Yeah. I have like a 2-hour lecture really diving into the fallacy of that concept.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true, especially when you get into the studies about eating fat and protein and minimizing or very being selective on what types of carbs you're eating. So I do have, kind of going back to, this was the note that I was writing earlier to not get on too much of a tangent, but what you were saying earlier, I think there's a nugget in here. And you had said earlier that, of course, learning how to eat properly for health and nutrition was a huge component, as well as proper exercise. Like that was a big chunk, but you said the major component was thinking properly, and you had mentioned trauma. And I'm wondering how much of that, because I know, like for me, herbs were very helpful. Of course, talking and working through things very definitely helps through challenging things that I had to overcome in my life. But the herbs also played a role, and especially flower essences. And I'm wondering how much did that kind of intersect at that time at all for you?
It didn't. I didn't even know flower essences existed until I started pursuing actual, herbal schools to do this as a career. But all of those different angles of herbalism will be part of my training for my students. And I really think different people click with different things. So I envision like having some students when I start teaching flower essences be like, but then other students being like, oh my gosh, that has happened to me, and I love that, because I think there's also a client for every practitioner. I think there'll be some clients that sit in front of me and be like, that girl ain't for me, versus some students and clients who are like, oh yeah, like this is who I'm supposed to be working with. And so plants are so diverse, and they're just as diverse as our passions, and they're just as diverse as our clients. And so having that diversity in the training in my school is really important to me, because I don't want to just teach what spoke with me, because they're not me. I want to teach all the different ways they can get into these plants, because they're all going to connect in a different way, and they're going to serve those clients in that way. And I really think a very important part of this field is to avoid the competitive nature that is in a lot of other fields, with the scarcity mentality that, oh, there's not going to be enough clients for all these health coaches or all these herbalists. It's not true. There are enough people for anyone who wants to be a coach. There are enough clients. There are enough people who want to learn about this. We're all unique, and there's a reason why we have this desire to help others that we have. And so that's going to be a very important component of my school too. Like, look at each other. You are not competitors. You're partners, and you're all going to do this differently. And we're here to help each other succeed.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, I rarely see that taught in the world in general, but especially in school and training professions. So that's wonderful.
Because you can see how they can all look at each other and be like, you're my competition.
Yeah.
And to a point, that's true. But competition only exists if you have a scarcity mentality, that there's not going to be enough people for you, that there's no demand for you in the world. And I just choose not to believe that.
Well, it sounds like you're promoting to know yourself, know your own strengths and build upon those. And that, like you said, the right clients will be attracted to your way of being. And
yes,
I think that's so true.
And man, part of that is owning your story. And so they're going to have to own their journey and their story, because that's going to speak to someone and that's going to attract that client to them. And so the very first semester of the program is really going to be about embracing your authentic self, your flaws, your imperfections, and knowing that those are there for a reason. And that part of your story is going to serve someone else.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it could just be like I went into yoga teacher training just wanting to, I didn't plan on becoming a teacher, but I learned so much about myself and so much in general through that. And it sounds like this, if a person obviously is willing to commit the time and relatively little money, could really be a tremendous growth opportunity too.
I hope so. Yeah, if anything, they will feel better. If the only thing they get out of it is they feel better, that's enough.
Yeah, right? It's a great investment into health. Here I am. Am I getting a cut on this? No, I'm not. I'm just promoting your program for you. Like all these reasons that someone could take the program.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it did for me too. That's why I'm doing it. It gave me a better life. And so I just want to pass that on to other people.
Yeah, that's so cool. We covered a lot of topics here, but do you have any parting thoughts or messages for anyone who's been listening?
Well, just know, one, if you're feeling horrible, you can feel better. And two, if you want to help people, you totally can. And you don't have to spend your entire life savings to do it. So if you want to learn about the program, you can go to www.hillcollege.edu/holistic wellness, or you can go to my blog, which is loriroseholistic.wordpress.com.
That's great.
Just talk to me and I'll hopefully guide you to where you want to go.
That sounds excellent. Of course, I'll put those in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
This has been delightful talking to you. I knew it would be, like I said, by your cheery face and in the photos you sent me on Facebook. And I really look forward to being in contact in the future.
Thank you. Me too. I really appreciate it.
It's been fun. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Weight Free Wellness podcast. And I bet there is probably someone that you thought of while you were listening to this. Go ahead and share this with them. Share it on social media, email them, send smoke signals, however you want to tell them that weightfreewellness.com is a great resource for wellness information. Also, while you're on Facebook at Weight Free Wellness or Twitter or Instagram, we're also on Pinterest. Drop by and just drop a note and say, hey, I love hearing from you. I love hearing what you are enjoying and what you'd like to hear more of. And if you have some constructive criticism, let me know that too, because we're always striving to make this better. And of course, your reviews on iTunes mean the world to us because they help other people who are perusing the podcast platforms know that this is a valuable podcast to stop and hang out for a while and check out what we have to offer. Have a wonderful day. Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.